A vending machine killed me because I wanted one stuck can of orange soda. When I opened my eyes again, 300 teenagers in black academy uniforms were laughing at the class written beside my name. I stood on a stone platform before a floating crystal. Blue words burned inside it, and somehow I understood them. Stove idler. The laughter became louder. A broad young man in a white kitchen coat slapped his knee. His name was Bram. I knew that because somebody behind him shouted it while laughing. A stove idler. We waited 10 years for a kitchen awakening, and we got a man whose talent is standing near soup. More laughter rolled through the hall. I looked down at a thin 18-year-old body in cheap gray clothes. Memories surfaced with the name Steve, orphan, kitchen helper, 12 copper a day, allowed to awaken only because an old academy law gave every worker under 21 chance. The dean sat beneath a red banner with instructors, noble parents, and Chef Doran, the square-bearded master of the academy kitchen. "Enough," he said. The students quieted. Doran looked at me for a long moment. I expected him to defend his worker. "Steve, the kitchen has no budget for useless awakened staff," Doran said. "Bram keeps the junior cook position. You keep helper pay and take drains, ash, and cellar pests." Bram smiled. Doran continued, "If you object, you may leave academy housing tonight." That was the entire choice. 300 students watched me get demoted 5 minutes after being reborn. I considered making a speech. Then I remembered that the last major decision of my first life had involved shaking a vending machine. I had learned to respect gravity. "I understand," I said. Bram leaned close as I stepped down from the platform. "Do not worry. The rats will finally have a chef." The students around him laughed again. I looked at his clean white coat, then at my burned hands. "Good," I said. "They probably tip better than you." The laugh that followed was smaller, but it was aimed at him. Bram's smile tightened. That was my first victory in the new world. It was worth 0 copper. The lower kitchen had 12 iron stoves, hanging copper pots, and the smell of onions, bread, hot fat, and smoke. It was the first thing in this world that felt friendly. Then Doran handed me a bucket, a hook, and a rusted knife. "Cellar 3, he said. "Rat nest. Bring back the tails. I pay 1 copper for every 10. Bram was carrying a tray of meat pies past us. He stopped just long enough to hear. "Careful, Steve. If one bites you, we might awaken a second class. Rat Prince." I took the bucket. "If that happens, I will promote you to court jester." Bram's ears went red. Cellar 3 was wet, cold, and full of monster rats. Their teeth cut leather, but their tails stored weak life force that helped them heal small wounds. That sounded useful. The thought had barely formed when something warm moved behind my eyes. I did not see a floating window. I heard a simple certainty, like remembering a rule I had always known. Anything I personally gathered and personally cooked could carry part of its natural property into the eater forever. Forever was a dangerous word. I gripped the knife. Another certainty followed. I would receive 1/10 of every permanent effect I successfully gave to another person. I stood very still. Above me, hundreds of people were celebrating combat classes: Sword Adept, Flamecaster, Iron Body, Wind Archer. I had received the class that made soup permanent. I smiled. Then the first rat jumped at my face. It was the size of a house cat and had the personality of a brick thrown through a window. I caught the first rat with the bucket after it bounced off the metal and came for my face again. My new body was weak. An average first-year fighter had 10 strength. I had 3.8. I had 3.8. The rat probably had 2. This was not heroic combat. It was 2 poor creatures arguing about employment. I trapped it under the bucket, shoved the hook through the handle, and pressed down until it stopped moving. My hands shook afterward. I cut off the tail. The moment my fingers touched it, I knew its useful property. A full portion, prepared correctly, could grant 2/10 of a point of natural regeneration. Not for an hour, not for a day. Permanently, I sat on a barrel and stared at a dead rat. A cheap healing potion cost 6 silver. The cheapest permanent strength elixir cost 40 gold. I earned 12 copper a day. 1 gold was 100 silver. 1 silver was 100 copper. I earned 12 copper a day. The rat tail in my hand had cost me a bruise and 5 ugly minutes. I caught 4 more rats before noon. The next 4 rats proved my class did not make hunting easier. One bit my sleeve, another escaped twice. By noon, I was bruised, dusty, and carrying 5 tails. When I returned to the kitchen, Bram looked at me and started laughing before I even spoke. You look like bread. Then stop staring before you get hungry. This time 3 helpers laughed. I dropped 5 taels into my bucket, collected no copper because Doran only paid by tens, and asked for permission to use kitchen scraps for my meal. Doran did not even look up from his ledger. Onion ends, old carrot, bone stock, nothing from the student stores. Perfect. I cleaned and roasted the tails, browned onion and fat, added carrot, pepper, and bone stock, then simmered everything until the broth turned glossy and rich. Rat tail soup sounded like a punishment invented by a cruel grandmother. Rat tail soup with roasted onion smelled good enough to make 2 passing helpers slow down. One of them was a thin first-year student carrying a practice shield. He was huge from the shoulders down, but he moved carefully, as if every joint hurt. His name surfaced from the body's memory. Ren, lowest-ranked shield-bearer in the new class, failed the endurance test that morning. He stared at the pot. Is that for students? No. I added salt. But I can sell you a bowl. How much? I thought about my daily wage. 5 copper. Ren blinked. The dining hall lunch is free. Then this is a terrible financial decision. What is it? Rat tail soup. Still interested? He looked toward the training yard, then rubbed the red mark on his neck where his armor strap had cut him. 5 copper? 5. He placed the coins on the table. There were only 2 witnesses. A kitchen maid named Elin and a dishwasher boy who had stopped pretending to wash the same plate. I filled a bowl. The broth was amber and thick. Thin strips of tail meat curled around soft carrot. Roasted onion floated on top. I put half a piece of yesterday's bread beside it. Ren took 1 cautious spoonful, then another. This is rat? Please do not insult the chef. His family is nearby. The dishwasher boy laughed so hard he dropped the plate into the water. Ren finished the bowl. The certainty returned. Permanent regeneration increased by 2/10. My own regeneration increased by 2/100. The change was small enough that I would have missed it without the class. The bite on my arm stopped throbbing. A thin red line slowly tightened. Ren put down the spoon. I feel warm. You ate soup? No. Different. Elin leaned closer. Your neck. The raw mark under Ren's armor strap was fading. We all watched it. Ren touched the skin. That was bleeding this morning. Ren gained 2/10 permanently. I gained 2/100. 50 fresh eaters at the same return would give me 1 full point. Stronger ingredients could change the scale completely. Ren stood so fast that the bench scraped the floor. I have endurance drill in 10 minutes. Then go. What did you put in that? Salt? Onion? A career decision. He ran. Elin stared at me. Steve. Yes? What did you do? I looked at the 5 copper coins on the table. I sold lunch. By mid-afternoon, the entire first year knew that Ren had completed the endurance drill. That alone would not have mattered. People improved. People had good days. The problem was that Ren had completed all 10 laps. The day before, he had collapsed after 6. That morning, he had collapsed after 7. After my soup, he finished 10 and still had enough breath to argue with the instructor about an 11th. Rumors moved through the academy, faster than fire through dry paper. When I carried Ash to the yard, 20 students turned to look at me. One whispered, "Rat cook." Another whispered, "Ren says it healed him." A third said, "He probably drank a potion." Then Bram arrived. He had heard too. Bram entered the yard with Doran and raised his voice until half the training group stopped. "Steve, explain why you are selling food to students without kitchen approval." That was clever. He was protecting his position. If he made this look like rule-breaking before the rumor grew, he could kill it early. Doran folded his arms. Ren stepped out of a group of SHIELD trainees. "I bought it." Bram pointed at him. "And you are claiming rat soup improved your body permanently." "I'm claiming I feel better than I did this morning." Feelings are not measurements. That was also true. Nearly 100 students gathered while an instructor brought the brass testing pillar. Bram smiled at me. "Good. Let us measure. If nothing changed, you refund every coin and stop this nonsense. I have sold 1 bowl. Then your criminal empire has had a short life." The crowd laughed. He enjoyed that too much. I looked at Ren. "What was your regeneration score this morning?" The instructor answered, 1.4. Ren placed his palm against the brass pillar. Light climbed through engraved lines. The yard became quiet. The instructor leaned forward. 1.6. Nobody laughed. Bram's mouth stayed open for half a second. Ren looked at me. The instructor checked again. 1.6. Test error is less than 100th. He increased by 0.2. 100 people reacted at once. Questions exploded. Someone yelled that the pillar was broken. Someone else asked the price. A girl shouted that she had 5 copper. Bram raised both hands. Stop. A temporary food effect can change a test. This proves nothing. Again, he was not stupid. Food buffs existed in this world. They lasted minutes or hours. The instructor nodded. Correct. We test again at sunset. Bram looked at me. And when it fades, everyone will know what you are. I looked around at the crowd. A kitchen helper? Someone snorted. Bram's face hardened. At sunset, the score was still 1.6. The crowd was bigger. 200 students surrounded the testing pillar at sunset. The dean, Doran, and 3 instructors watched. Ren tested once. 1.6. The instructor made him wait 10 minutes and tested again. 1.6. Then he used a second pillar. 1.6. The silence after the third result lasted perhaps 2 seconds. Then, the yard exploded. Permanent? From food? How much? Steve, sell me a bowl. I will pay 1 silver. I will pay 2. A noble boy pushed forward. 10 silver for 1 serving tonight. My daily wage was 12 copper. 10 silver was more than 80 days of work. Bram stood beside the pillar looking as if somebody had served him his own shoe. I could have smiled at him. I did not. I looked at Doran instead. Chef, I need permission to use 1 stove after dinner service. The crowd quieted enough to hear his answer. Doran understood that everyone was watching. If Doran refused in front of everyone, he became the man who stopped the academy from testing an impossible effect. If he agreed, he let me grow. His jaw moved once. 1 stove. You buy your own salt. The crowd cheered. That cheer mattered more than Bram's face. Status had moved. That morning, I had been Rat Prince. By sunset, students were arguing over who could buy my second bowl. Money had moved too. I had only 17 copper in hand, but students were already offering silver. Power had moved the least. 200ths of regeneration was almost nothing. Almost. The first coin in a pile was also almost nothing. That night I did not sell another bowl. I only had 4 usable tails left, and I did not understand the limits of my own class. Greed was how vending machines won. Instead, I ate ordinary kitchen stew with Ren after the dining hall closed. Steam rose from beef and barley stew between us. The onions had cooked down, sweet black pepper warmed the broth, and fresh bread cracked under my fingers. Ren ate like a man trying to apologize to every meal he had ever rushed. Everyone wants to know what you are charging tomorrow, he said. I do not know if there will be a tomorrow menu. Why? Because I need ingredients I gather myself. I told him only the rule I was certain about. Personal gathering, personal cooking, permanent effect. I did not mention the 10% return. Ren looked down at his hands. So you fought the rats? Fought is generous. One of them won a round. He laughed. A soft voice came from the doorway. Is there any stew left? A tired girl in a dark training coat stood there with black hair tied at the neck. Ren immediately sat straight. Lady Arya. Arya Vale. Dean's daughter. Spear prodigy. I asked about stew. There is stew, I said. I gave her a bowl. This stew carried no permanent effect because I had not gathered the ingredients. It was only hot, salty, and good. For a few quiet minutes, 3 people ate in an empty kitchen while rain tapped the windows. Then Arya said, I saw the test. So did half the academy. Half the academy saw a miracle. You saw arithmetic. I looked at her. She had been watching me, not Ren. That was different. Arithmetic keeps miracles from becoming accidents, I said. She smiled slightly. Good answer. After they left, I carried the dirty bowls downstairs. The old washroom led to a storage passage and an open door breathing cold air. I stepped inside. The room was older than the kitchen. On the far wall, somebody had carved a menu into black stone. The dates in Steve's inherited memory made it more than a century old. There were 12 dishes. I could read 11. Iron boar heart stew, mooncarp broth, ashroot bread, griffin bone consomme. Then there was the 12th line. The name had been scraped away. Not faded. Destroyed. Deep knife marks crossed the stone so many times that the surface looked wounded. I reached out. The moment my finger touched the damaged line, my class reacted. For the first time, the certainty inside me felt afraid, and behind me, an old woman whispered, "Do not cook what was written there." I turned. She was holding a lantern with both hands. Her face had gone white. "I ate it once," she said, "and the next morning, my class was gone." The old woman's name was Nora, and she refused to tell me anything else until sunrise. That was how my second day began. Not with breakfast, not with money, with an elderly former cook locking a century-old stone menu behind 3 iron bolts and telling me that if I valued my life, I would forget the missing dish existed. I had been alive in this world for less than 1 day. Naturally, forgetting it became impossible. Nora had worked in the academy storage rooms for 40 years. Her hands shook when she lifted heavy things, but not when she held a knife. That told me more about her than the gray hair did. "You said you ate the dish," I told her. "I said too much. You said your class disappeared. And now I am saying less." She pushed a sack of onions at me. "Carry these." I carried them. Arguing with an old woman before breakfast felt like challenging a mountain to move. Upstairs, the kitchen had become a market. 23 students were waiting outside the service door. By the time I arrived, there were 31. Bram stood between them and the kitchen with both arms spread. "No unauthorized sales. Chef Doran's order." That sounded bad until Doran himself stepped out behind him. "My order," Doran said, "is that Steve may use 1 stove after official service. He may not interfere with breakfast." Bram glanced back. Doran's wording had cut him off at the knees without raising his voice. The waiting students cheered. Doran pointed at me. "You still work for me during work hours. Cellar 4 has claw mice. 15 tails before noon. 1 copper per 10. 1 copper per 10. Generous." His mouth almost moved. Bram heard the students laugh. He hated that. I understood him better now. Bram had spent 4 years climbing the kitchen hierarchy. Junior cook meant better housing, 32 copper a day, and a recommendation letter after graduation. I had arrived with flour on my face and created a line of paying customers overnight. He did not want me dead. He wanted the world to return to normal. Unfortunately for Bram, normal had already eaten rat soup. Cellar 4 was worse than Cellar 3. Claw mice were smaller, faster, and had front paws with hooked nails. I caught the first using a sack. The second cut my wrist. The third ran up my leg and taught me several new words in the local language, all of them useful. By the 6th kill, I noticed something important. Rat tails and claw mouse paws felt different to my class. A rat tail carried regeneration. A claw mouse paw carried grip strength. Prepared correctly, 1 full portion could permanently increase grip strength by 1/10. The useful property depended on the body part. That was the second consequence of my class. I stopped cutting only tails. By noon, I had 15 tails for Doran, 7 usable paws for myself, and 1 whole claw mouse liver that my class identified as carrying poison resistance. Not much. 0.05 of a point per portion, but permanent was permanent. When I climbed out of the cellar, Mira was waiting at the door. She was a second-year hunter with short brown hair and a leather coat covered in repaired cuts. I knew her reputation. Fast bow, better knife, terrible manners. She looked at my bucket. "You kept the paws." "Yes. Most cooks throw them away." "Most cooks probably enjoy free time." She picked up 1 paw by the claw. "What do you want from monsters?" "Everything edible." "That is not an answer. Liver, tendon, marrow, tongues, tails, hearts, anything with a useful natural property." Mira narrowed her eyes. "You can tell?" I said nothing. She smiled. "Good. I hate people who explain secrets in hallways." Then she dropped a small canvas bag on the floor. Inside were 3 dead ember lizards. My class did nothing. I had not gathered them. "Can you cook these?" she asked. "Yes." "Will they do what the rat did?" "No." "Why?" "I did not gather them." She stared at me for 2 seconds. Then she laughed. That is inconvenient. It has been a difficult morning. Mira kicked the bag back toward herself. Fine. Tomorrow you come outside the wall with me. You touch the kill before it dies. I keep the cores. You keep the ugly parts. What is your fee? Half the coin from any dish made with my hunt. 1/4. Half. 1/3. And you carry your own bucket. Done. We shook hands. Resources moved. Yesterday I had a rusted knife and rats. Now I had access to an actual hunter. At lunch, Ren brought me another problem. My regeneration is still 1.6. That is not a problem. No, this is. He held out 3 silver coins. People paid me to give you their names. I looked past him. The line outside the kitchen had grown to 60 students. Some were low-ranked. Some were not. A noble boy from yesterday was holding a purse big enough to insult my childhood. I counted my usable ingredients. 4 rat tails from yesterday. 7 claw mouse paws. 1 liver. I could make 12 portions if I combined carefully. 12 out of 60. Scarcity had arrived before I owned a second shirt. I wrote 12 names on a scrap of paper. 10 low-ranked students. Ren, Arya. The noble boy saw me skip him. I offered 10 silver. I remember. That is more than these people can pay together. Also true? Then why am I not on the list? Because I needed data more than money. I wanted different bodies, different classes, different baseline scores. If the effects behaved differently, I needed to know before someone important ate something dangerous. Today is testing, I said. Tomorrow may be selling. He looked offended. Bram, who had been cutting bread nearby, smiled for the first time all morning. You hear that? The rat chef thinks he can choose customers now. I turned to the line. I can. Silence. Then Ren laughed. Then several others did. Bram slammed the knife down. You are using Academy fuel, Academy bowls, Academy water. You do not own this kitchen. Chef Doran was not there. That was why Bram had chosen the moment. He stepped toward my stove. Until Chef returns, no cooking. Mira leaned against the wall and watched. 30 students watched too. I could have argued. Instead, I picked up my bucket. Fine. Bram blinked. Fine? You are correct. I do not own the kitchen. I walked outside. Ren followed. Then the 12 names followed. Then Mira. Then most of the line. Behind the laundry building stood an old brick wash furnace nobody used in summer. I cleaned the iron plate, bought a bundle of firewood for 9 copper, borrowed a pot from Nora for a promise to return it without dents, and started cooking in the courtyard. By the time the broth began to boil, almost 80 students had gathered around us. Bram came outside. His face changed when he saw the crowd. He had stopped me from using one stove. He had accidentally given me a stage. I roasted the claw mouse paws until the skin crisped. I stripped the tiny tendons and chopped them with garlic. The meat went into a thick barley broth with browned onion. The rat tails went into a second pot with ginger root. The liver I sliced paper thin and cooked alone in a small pan because I did not yet trust poison resistance mixed with anything else. The smell filled the courtyard. Students moved closer. 12 bowls, I said. 5 copper each today. You agree to test before eating and again 1 hour later. Every chosen student agreed. The first 10 received grip stew. Each gained 1/10 of grip strength. The testing pillar confirmed it. 10 results. 10 increases. The courtyard became a storm of voices. A sword student squeezed the test handle and shouted when his score rose from 9.2 to 9.3. A mage with weak hands went from 4.7 to 4.8 and immediately paid me another 5 copper to reserve tomorrow. A boy in the back yelled, I will pay 1 silver. Another yelled, 2. Bram tried to speak over them. 1/10 is nothing. Mira answered before I could. Then give me 1/10 of your rank. The crowd laughed. Bram pointed at me. He is manipulating you with tiny numbers. I nodded. He is right about the numbers being tiny. That quieted them. Do not buy from me expecting to become a hero in 1 bowl. 1/10 is 1/10. 2/10 is 2/10. Permanent means you will still have it next year. That is all I am promising. The crowd reacted differently this time. Less shouting, more attention. Trust moved. That mattered. Ren ate the second rat tail portion. Nothing happened. My class gave me no return. His regeneration stayed at 1.6. There it was. The third consequence. The same ingredient effect did not stack endlessly on the same person. Ren looked worried. I smiled. Good. Good? I found a limit before somebody paid 10 silver to find it for me. The noble boy in the crowd slowly lowered his purse. More laughter. Arya arrived late. She had changed into a plain dark coat again. She stood outside the circle until the testing ended. I had saved the liver portion for her. "What does this do?" she asked. "I am not sure I should give it to you." "That is a terrible sales pitch." "Poison resistance. 5/100ths, if my estimate is correct." Her eyes sharpened. "Permanent?" "Yes." "Then I will test it." Ren looked nervous. Mira looked interested. Bram looked hopeful, which was reason enough to be careful. Arya ate the liver on toasted bread with salt and a little sour berry paste. The liver was rich, metallic, and almost sweet. The berry cut through it. She finished it without complaint. Her poison resistance rose from 1.1 to 1.15. The number was tiny. The reaction was not. One instructor who had come to watch whispered, "Resistance effects from food last minutes." Arya looked at me. "We test again tonight." "We do." Bram left the courtyard before the crowd dispersed. He had not been humiliated because I insulted him. He had been humiliated because 80 people watched his attempt to shut me down, create a larger demonstration. That was better. By evening, I had collected 60 copper from 12 bowls and 9 copper in tips. Mira took none because her hunted lizards had not been used. After buying firewood, salt, and 2 cheap knives, I ended the day with 58 copper more than I had started with. My wage was still 12 copper. My food had earned almost 5 days of wages in one afternoon. Power had moved too. 10 successful grip dishes gave me 1/100th of grip strength each. The liver gave me 5/1000ths of poison resistance. The regeneration dishes gave nothing new, because Ren had reached saturation, and I had not fed the remaining rat tail to a fresh person. Tiny numbers. But my knife felt slightly more stable in my hand. Before sunset, Ren showed me the notice board. Somebody had copied the 12 test results in neat chalk. Next to each name were the old score, the new score, and the price paid. Underneath, students had started a waiting list without asking me. It already had 46 names. One line made me stop. Someone had written that Steve's food was cheap because Steve was stupid. Under it, another hand had answered that Steve's food was cheap because Steve was testing them. A third hand had added that both things could be true. I left that one untouched. 2 senior students offered to buy my entire next batch for 3 silver. I refused in front of everyone and said the next test still needed different classes and different bodies. The low-ranked students in the line heard me choose data over easy money. That bought something I could not cook. Reputation. At dinner, Arya found me on the back steps eating roasted potatoes with salt. She sat without asking. "My resistance is still higher," she said. "Good. You are not surprised. I would be more surprised if my class lied to me." She looked at the potato in my hand. "Is that enhanced?" "No, it is a potato. Can I have one?" I gave her the largest. For several minutes, the dean's daughter and the rat cook ate potatoes behind a laundry house, while students searched the main kitchen for both of us. It was peaceful. Then Arya flexed her left hand. I noticed the movement. She noticed me noticing. "Old injury," she said. "Does it hurt?" "Yes." "Can healers fix it?" "No." She said it too quickly. I did not push. She looked toward the training towers. "If your food can permanently change regeneration and resistance, people will stop laughing soon. Some already have. That is when the dangerous ones start paying attention." Before I could answer, Mira came around the corner at a run. "Steve, cellar yard, now." We followed her. A delivery cart stood beside the gate. On it lay 6 dead marsh wolves. Chef Doran was shouting at the supplier. "Rotten. I ordered fresh carcasses." The supplier shouted back. "They died this morning." I stepped closer. My class reacted to none of them. I had not gathered them. But something else was wrong. Green foam stained one wolf's mouth. Mira crouched beside it. "Poison." Doran swore. The supplier went pale. Then one of the supposedly dead wolves opened its eyes. It lunged off the cart. Students screamed. Mira drew her knife. Arya reached for a spear she was not carrying. I had only my new kitchen knife. The wolf came at me. I stabbed because there was nowhere to run. My blade entered beneath its jaw at the same instant Mira's knife struck its neck. The animal collapsed across my legs. Warm blood covered my apron. My class reacted. Personally gathered. Personally claimed. The marsh wolf's heart carried stamina. Its liver carried poison resistance. Its eyes carried night vision. and its tongue carried something I had never felt before, a skill fragment. Mira looked at my face. You felt something. Around us, 40 students had seen the attack. Chef Doran had seen my knife go in. Bram had seen it from the kitchen door. I looked down at the wolf. For the first time, one monster had enough useful parts to make an entire menu. Then Doran said very softly, "Nobody touches that carcass. It belongs to the academy." I woke before dawn on the third day because somebody was trying to steal my wolf. The sound was small, a wheel scraping stone below my room. I looked out the laundry window and saw Bram pushing a covered kitchen cart toward the rendering shed. The shape beneath the cloth had 4 legs. I dressed in less than a minute. By the time I reached the courtyard, Bram had 2 helpers lifting the marsh wolf onto a butcher table. "Morning," I said. Both helpers froze. Bram did not. Chef Doran ordered the carcasses processed. He ordered nobody to touch the one I killed. You stabbed it after Mira did. Mira struck after me. Prove it. Mira's voice came from the gate. I can. She walked in carrying her bow. Bram's face tightened. Why are you here? Because I hunt before breakfast. Some of us have useful classes. One helper covered his mouth. Bram heard the muffled laugh. Mira pointed at the wolf. Steve's blade entered first. I cut the artery after. Under Hunter law, first disabling strike shares claim. Under Academy law, the Academy owns the core. Meat rights go to the claimant unless a contract says otherwise. Bram stared at her. You memorized butcher law? I hunt things. It helps to know who owns them afterward. Chef Doran arrived before Bram could answer. He looked at the cart, the helpers, Mira, then me. Bram. Chef? I was only following processing schedule. Doran was corrupt. I already suspected that, but corruption did not mean stupidity, and it did not mean he enjoyed public disorder. Did I tell you to move this wolf? No. Then return it. The 2 helpers immediately obeyed. Bram looked at me with murder in his eyes. Doran turned to me. You may keep edible parts after the academy takes the core. You use your own fuel, you clean your own station. If one student becomes sick, I shut you down. Agreed. And Steve? Yes? Nothing leaves this academy without my knowledge. There it was. Doran had moved from annoyance to interest. The latter had gained a second rung. Mira removed the wolf's core. It was a dull green stone worth around 2 silver. She handed it to Doran for academy accounting, then helped me butcher the rest. The heart could provide 2/10 of stamina per portion across 4 portions. The liver could provide 1/10 of poison resistance across 3 portions. The eyes could provide a weak night vision trait to 2 people. The tongue was different. My class did not translate it into a number. It carried the active skill low light focus. Prepared with the right combination, there was a chance to strengthen an existing perception skill, not create one, strengthen one. The 4th consequence. I immediately thought of Arya. Then I stopped myself. That was how bad decisions started. Find rare ingredient. Feed rare ingredient to girl. Hope nobody explodes. I needed a safer test. Ren volunteered before I asked. I have shield awareness. That is not a perception skill. It tells me when something hits my shield. That is called pain. He looked offended. It is a real skill. Mira laughed. We spent the morning hunting outside the wall because Mira's agreement still mattered. She took me to a low danger marsh field where ember lizards nested among warm rocks. The academy walls remained visible behind us. That was important because I was still physically pathetic. My strength had increased only through tiny grip returns. My regeneration was 2/100ths above baseline. My stamina was unchanged. Mira could kill an ember lizard with 1 arrow. I could kill one if it had a bad day and I had a large rock. So Mira changed the method. She pinned the first lizard's tail with an arrow. Your kill, she said. I approached with the knife. The lizard spat sparks. I nearly lost an eyebrow. It is angry, I said. Yes. Your tactical analysis is excellent. I killed it. The glands behind its jaw carried heat resistance. 1 portion could provide 1/10. We killed 8 before noon. Mira pinned. I finished. She took the cores worth 3 silver total. I kept the glands, meat, and 2 strange sacs near the stomach that my class identified as heat storage tissue. 1 sac could temporarily improve fire output, but not permanently. That mattered too. Not every property became permanent. The class selected what was natural and stable. Back at the academy, I had a crowd waiting again. This time, there were more than 100 students. A handwritten notice had appeared on the board near the dining hall. Steve's food tests, courtyard after lunch, limited portions. I had not written it. Ren had. Underneath, someone had added Rat King. Under that, somebody else had crossed out rat and written buff. Status moved in chalk before it moved in law. I priced the Ember Lizard broth at 20 copper a bowl. Yesterday I had charged 5. Nobody complained. I sold 8 portions in less than a minute, 1 silver and 60 copper. After Mira's 1/3 share from dishes tied to her hunt, fuel, onions, garlic, and bread, I kept just over 1 silver. That was almost 10 days of my kitchen wage from 1 lunch service. Every eater gained 1/10 of heat resistance. I gained 1/100th from each. 8 successful portions gave me 8/100ths of permanent heat resistance. For the first time, I could feel a return clearly. Holding my hand near the stove stopped being uncomfortable. Students noticed when I lifted a hot lid without cloth. The reaction moved through the courtyard like wind. He gets stronger too. That rumor was dangerous. I had not told anyone about the 10% return. I looked at Ren. He shook his head. Mira shook hers too. Arya, standing near the back, said nothing. Bram was the one smiling. He had seen me touch the lid. "Interesting," he said loudly. "Every student pays, and Steve takes something for himself." The crowd quieted. He had chosen his attack carefully. Not fraud, exploitation. "How much do you take?" a student asked. I could have lied. That would have bought maybe 1 day. 1/10 of the permanent effect? Silence. Then noise. A lot of noise. Some angry, some excited, some confused. Bram raised his voice. "So Ren gained 2/10 of regeneration and you stole part of it?" "No, Ren received 2/10. I received 2/100ths separately. From him. From the completed dish. Convenient wording. He was good at this when he had time to think." The crowd looked uncertain. Then Ren stepped onto the testing platform. "I paid 5 copper for 2/10 of permanent regeneration. Steve got 2/100ths. If that is theft, somebody please rob me again." Laughter broke the tension. A sword student raised his hand. "If I get 1/10 and he gets 1/100th, I do not care." Another shouted, "Charge him extra." More laughter. Bram's attack collapsed in public. His face did not. He simply nodded. That worried me more. He was learning. The wolf dishes came next. I did not sell them openly. I selected 9 students with useful baselines and made them sign the Academy food ledger in front of Doran. 4 stamina portions, 3 poison resistance portions, 2 night vision portions, all worked. The night vision effect caused the biggest shock. When the first student entered a dark storeroom and correctly counted 6 hanging pans without a lamp, 20 witnesses shouted at once. The second did the same. A senior instructor immediately offered 5 gold for the recipe. I refused. 5 gold was more money than Steve had seen in his entire old life here. I still refused. The recipe without personally gathered ingredients was only dinner. That was the beauty of my limitation. Nobody could steal the method and mass-produce the effect unless they had my class. Doran understood this too. I saw it in his eyes. At sunset, he called me into his office. His desk held 3 ledgers. 1 official. 2 that looked much more interesting. "You made 1 silver today." "A little more." "You used Academy property." "I bought fuel and ingredients." "You used an Academy courtyard, Academy reputation, Academy customers." There it was. "What do you want?" 30% of gross sales." "No." He leaned back. 25. "No. You are a helper earning 12 copper a day. Do not negotiate as if you own a guild. Then stop negotiating with me as if I do." His eyes narrowed. For a moment, the room was very quiet. Then Doran laughed once. It was not friendly, but it was real. 15%. In exchange, you use 2 stoves after service, 1 locked cabinet, and official Academy food ledgers. That was actually useful. 10%. 12. And I choose my customers. 12. Done. Resources moved again. I now had legal kitchen access, storage, and a record proving what my food did. Doran gained money and oversight. Neither of us trusted the other. That made the agreement stable. The official ledger changed the mood of the academy faster than another rumor could. By late afternoon, students were no longer asking whether the food worked. They were comparing which effects they had not saturated yet. Ren started keeping a small cue book for me. He charged nothing. When I asked why, he tapped his shield and said refined awareness was payment enough. A noble student offered him 1 gold to move a name to the front. Ren refused in front of 20 people. That refusal became its own rumor. The strange part was that my reputation started spreading through other people. I had not become stronger because I shouted louder. I had become useful enough that Ren wanted the rules around me to stay clean. Chef Doran noticed the same thing. He added a lock to my cabinet and made Elin sign every ingredient entry. It looked like control. It was also protection. If Bram accused me of hiding something, the ledger could answer before I did. By dinner, 3 instructors had asked for reserved testing slots. I accepted 1 and refused 2. My available ingredients were still measured in tails, glands, and 1 wolf tongue. Demand had become larger than supply. After dark, I tested the wolf tongue. Ren sat at the kitchen table. Mira stood behind him. Arya leaned against the wall with her arms folded. I minced the tongue with herbs and seared it in a hot pan. I added a spoon of dark sauce, crushed pepper, and a little marrow. The smell was deep and savory, like roasted beef with smoke. Ren swallowed the first bite. Nothing happened. Second bite. Nothing. He finished the plate. My class reacted. Shield awareness had strengthened. Ren blinked. Someone is behind me. Mira was standing directly behind him. Excellent, she said. You have discovered people. No, move. She stepped left. Ren pointed left without turning. She stepped right. He pointed right. Arya's expression changed. Ren turned around slowly. My skill used to warn me only when impact was close. Now I can feel movement inside my guard range. Mira stopped joking. I felt my own return, not 1/10 of the full skill, a thin echo of improved spatial awareness. Enough that I noticed Arya's left hand trembling before she hit it. Skill quality could move. That was much more valuable than 1/10 of grip, and much more dangerous. We tested Ren in the training hall with 3 instructors present. Before the dish, his shield awareness was rated basic. After the dish, it was rated refined. The result went on to the official academy ledger. By the time we left the hall, people were already running toward the notice board. A refined skill normally required months or years of practice. I had done it with 1 tongue. Status did not move. It jumped. The next morning's rankings had not even been posted, and students were calling me Chef Steve instead of Rat King. I preferred Rat King. It had personality. That evening, Arya stayed after everyone left. I made flatbread in a pan with garlic oil and leftover herbs. No permanent effect, no testing, just food. She tore a piece and dipped it into warm tomato broth. My father asked about you, she said. The dean? Yes. What did you tell him? That you count everything. Terrible accusation. He also asked why I keep coming here. I looked at her. What did you tell him? She dipped another piece of bread. The soup is better than noble dinners. That was clearly not the whole answer. I let it remain, not the whole answer. Her left hand shook again. This time she did not hide it fast enough. Arya, she looked at the table. My energy channel was damaged when I was 12. Every time I force my spear skill, the damage spreads a little. Healing magic cannot repair channels once they scar. How long? Before what? Before you cannot fight. She was quiet. Maybe a year, maybe less. That explained the secret meals, the controlled expression, the way she ate warm food like somebody borrowing peace. I did not promise to fix her. I had no idea if I could. I will keep track of ingredients that affect channels, I said. She looked up. That is all? Would you prefer a dramatic oath? A small smile appeared. No. Good. I am bad at those. We finished the bread. Then Nora entered carrying a wrapped bundle. She placed it on the table. Inside was an old cookbook with half the pages burned. The missing dish, she said, was not made from 1 monster. It needed 7 ingredients. I stopped moving. Nora looked at Arya, then at me. And one of them grows only beneath the academy during the graduation trial. Before I could ask more, the kitchen bells began ringing. Not meal bells, alarm bells. A red flare rose over the student barracks. Ren burst through the door. Steve, the first-year trial was moved forward, tomorrow morning. Why? He held up a sealed notice. At the bottom was Chef Doran's signature. Above it was another name, Lord Vale, Royal Class Bureau Inspector. The capital had arrived 3 weeks early. The fourth day began with 200 students reading my name on an official inspection notice. By breakfast, there were 400. Lord Vale had posted it on every board in the academy. Royal Review of Unregistered Permanent Enhancement Practices. No headings appeared in my class. The kingdom liked them more. The notice ordered me to stop all public sales until inspection. It also moved the first-year field trial forward, so the Bureau could compare enhanced and unenhanced students under controlled conditions. That was not an attack with a knife. It was better. If my students failed, my food would be called fraud. If they succeeded too well, the Bureau would call it dangerous. Lord Vale had built a box and invited me to choose which wall hit my face. He arrived at breakfast wearing dark blue robes and silver gloves. Mid-30s, thin, clean, calm, not a cartoon villain. He had the expression of a banker examining a bridge. Arya saw him and went still. "My uncle," she said. That was inconvenient. "Your family enjoys paperwork." "My father is not like him." I did not say he was. Lord Vale crossed the dining hall with Chef Doran beside him. Students moved out of the way. He stopped at my table. "Steve, stove idler." "Yes. You have distributed permanent physical modifications to academy students without bureau licensing." "I sold soup." A few nearby students laughed. Vale did not. "That sentence will become less funny when someone dies." The laughter stopped. Good response. He knew how to control a room. "That is why I test every effect," I said. "With children," Ren bristled. I lifted one hand before he spoke. "With volunteers old enough to enter combat trials," Vale glanced at Ren. "And what happens if a dish is prepared incorrectly?" My class went cold inside me. I had not told anyone that part because I did not know it yet. Vale knew something. "I have not served an incorrectly prepared permanent dish." That was not my question. The dining hall was silent now. Nora stood near the kitchen door. Her face had lost color. Vale looked at her for half a second. Then I understood. The Bureau knew the old history. "You moved the trial to test me," I said. "I moved it to protect the academy." "Those can both be true." For the first time, his expression shifted. Interest. "Good," he said. "Then you understand why today's kitchen evaluation will be public." Bram stepped out from behind Doran wearing his best white coat. "Of course," Vale continued. "You and Junior Cook Bram will each prepare one meal for the same group of test students. His meal will follow an approved enhancement recipe. Yours will use your claim method. Independent instructors will record results." Bram's confidence returned all at once. Approved enhancement cuisine existed. Temporary buffs. Safe. Legal. Measured. He had trained for years. I had trained for 3 days and been murdered by a beverage appliance. The entire academy packed into the courtyard by noon. Benches filled, windows opened, students sat on walls. Instructors stood around 3 testing pillars. The dean watched from the balcony with Arya beside him. Vale had turned lunch into an execution. Bram loved it. He prepared fire pepper beef, a standard academy combat meal. High heat, strong spices, beef strips seared in oil, fire peppers activated by crushing them at the last moment. The smell was excellent. I gave him that. His 5 test students ate. Their strength increased temporarily by 6/10 on average. The crowd applauded. Bram bowed. The effect would last about 2 hours. That was normal enhancement cuisine. Then it was my turn. My public sales were suspended, but personal gathering for test use had been approved under Vale's own notice. Mira and I had gone out before dawn. We hunted stoneback hares near the East Ridge. They were ridiculous animals. Round bodies, long ears, skin plates along the spine. When threatened, they charged headfirst like angry kettles. Mira pinned them. I finished 3. Their back tendons carried balance. Their inner ear organs carried spatial stability. Their hearts carried a tiny amount of explosive leg strength. I combined all 3 in a stew, not to maximize one number, to test interaction. I browned the hare meat until a dark crust formed. I cooked onions slowly until they turned sweet. I added crushed root spice, salt, stock, and thin ribbons of tendon. The inner ear tissue went in last, minced so finely nobody could identify it and panic. The result smelled like rich rabbit stew. 5 students ate. The first gained 1/10 of balance and 1/10 of leg strength. The second gained the same. The third, the fourth, the fifth. The crowd murmured. Bram smiled. 2/10 total. Mine gives 6/10. For 2 hours, Ren shouted from the benches. Laughter. Bram ignored him. Vale raised one gloved hand. We are not finished. Begin movement test. The 5 students crossed a narrow beam 10 feet above padded sand. Before the meal, 2 had fallen during baseline testing. Now all 5 crossed. Then they repeated it backward. All 5 crossed. The crowd got louder. Then the instructor made them jump between moving platforms. One slipped. His body corrected in midair in a way that looked almost wrong. He landed on 1 foot. The courtyard erupted. Again, Vale said. They repeated the test. All passed. Bram's smile disappeared. My return arrived in pieces. 5 portions. 1/100th of balance from each. 1/100th of leg strength from each. 5/100ths and 5/100ths. Small. But when I stepped around the stove, my feet felt more precise. Vale noticed. Of course he did. Permanent retest at sunset, he said. Now, the approved meal group. Bram's students entered the same movement test with 6/10 extra strength. The first jumped too hard and overshot a platform. The second landed badly. The third passed. Strength was useful. Strength without balance was a drunk horse with a sword. By the end, only 2 of 5 passed the full course. The crowd reacted exactly as crowds do when they understand a result before the officials announce it. They laughed, not at the students. At Bram, someone yelled, "Add more pepper." Another shouted, "Maybe the beam is immune to beef." Bram turned red. Vale stopped the noise with one look. This is not a comedy. I almost disagreed, but he was holding my future. At sunset, Bram's 6/10 had vanished. My students still had their 2/10 combined improvement. 4 testing pillars confirmed it. More than 300 witnesses watched. The Academy ledger recorded every number. Public victory. Status moved again. But Vale was not finished. Permanent does not mean safe, he said. Steve, prepare the same dish again. I looked at the ingredients left on my table. 1 tendon had gone gray at the edge. The smell was faintly sour. My class reacted the moment I touched it. Wrong. Not merely lower quality. Wrong. If a permanent dish failed during preparation, the eater would permanently lose 1 existing skill. The 5th consequence arrived like a knife in my stomach. I removed my hand. No. Vale's eyes sharpened. Why? This ingredient is spoiled. Then discard it and use another. There is no other. So the test ends. Bram laughed once, relieved. Vale looked at me. Unless you were planning to serve it anyway. I understood the trap now. He already knew the failure condition. He wanted to see whether I did. An incorrectly prepared permanent dish does not simply fail, I said. The entire courtyard quieted. Nora closed her eyes. Vale said, "Continue. It takes something from the eater, permanently, a skill." The crowd recoiled as one body. Ren whispered a curse. Mira stared at the spoiled tendon. Arya's face went completely still. Bram took 1 step away from my table. Vale finally looked satisfied. And now you understand why the Bureau exists. He was right. That was the worst part. A single careless cook with my class could destroy people. The same ability that made 5 copper soup miraculous made a burned pot into a weapon. The crowd's mood turned fast. Whispers spread. Lose a skill. Forever? What if yesterday's food was wrong? What if he lies? Status dropped almost as quickly as it had risen. That was Vale's real test. Not the beam. Trust. I took the spoiled tendon and threw it into the furnace. Then I faced the crowd. Nobody eats a permanent dish from me unless I test every ingredient and prepare it myself. If I am uncertain, I do not serve it. No exception for money, no exception for rank, no exception for Lord Vale. A few people laughed nervously. Vale did not object. Every effect goes in the Public Academy ledger, I continued. Every ingredient source, every preparation result. Anyone can refuse before eating. Anyone can test after. Ren stood. I will eat tomorrow. Mira raised her hand. Same. 1 low-ranked mage stood. Then another. The noble boy who had once offered 10 silver raised his voice. How much? The courtyard laughed harder this time. The fear did not vanish. It changed shape. That was enough. Vale looked around at the witnesses. His public warning had worked. So had my answer. Neither of us won completely. That made him dangerous. The fear did not disappear after my announcement. It became organized. That was better. An instructor brought a fresh ledger and wrote a red mark beside every permanent dish. Students began reading the ingredient source before they read the price. Doran ordered 2 sealed waste bins so spoiled material could never return to a cutting board. Mira demanded that every monster part receive a hunting tag with the time of death. Lord Vale watched all of it without smiling. "You are building procedure quickly," he said. "Procedure is cheaper than replacing a lost skill." 30 students heard me say it. One of them was the noble boy who had offered 10 silver on my first day. He stepped forward and placed 1 silver on the table. "Reservation for after the trial, only if the ledger says safe." Others followed. Sales were still suspended, so I returned every coin. That mattered more than keeping them. By evening, there were 27 written reservations for future meals and no money in my pocket from them. The students had seen me reject unsafe cooking and reject payment I was not yet allowed to take. Status recovered in public. Resources improved anyway. Doran gave me locked cold storage. Mira prepared tagged hunt bags. Vale authorized supervised trial meals. Ren organized the low-ranked students into pairs based on which permanent effects they already carried. For the first time, I was not merely cooking stronger food. I was building a system around the one rule that could destroy people if I became careless, and 40 witnesses had watched me choose caution over profit. After the evaluation, Doran called Bram into the kitchen in front of 12 staff members. "You moved Steve's claimed carcass without authorization yesterday. Today, you represented this kitchen in a royal review and lost control of the crowd." Bram's jaw tightened. "Chef, his ability is abnormal. So is fire. We still expect cooks not to put their hands in it." One maid laughed before she could stop herself. Doran removed the silver pin from Bram's white coat. "Junior cook privileges suspended for 7 days. Bram went pale. That was a public face slap with a real cost. Housing, pay, status. He looked at me. I did not smile. I knew the feeling of losing a position in front of a crowd. That did not make us friends. It simply meant I understood why his hatred became colder. Money barely moved that day because sales were suspended. Resources moved through permission instead. Vale authorized me to prepare food for tomorrow's field trial under supervision. Doran gave me access to the locked cold room. Mira secured hunting clearance. Power moved through the 5 hair portions and their returns. Status moved in both directions and settled higher than before because the danger was now known, not hidden. That night, the kitchen was quiet. Arya sat on the counter while I made chicken rice from ordinary ingredients. I cooked the rice in broth until every grain tasted like roasted meat. I shredded chicken into it, added green onion, and finished it with a soft egg. No enhancement, no risk. Arya held the bowl with both hands. "My uncle wanted you to fail," she said. "He wanted me to reveal the danger." "Both. Probably." "Do you hate him?" I thought about it. "No." She looked surprised. "That seems disappointing. He is doing his job. I just dislike being the job." She laughed quietly. Her hand shook again. I had spent the day thinking about spoiled food stealing skills. Now I thought about the opposite. If food could strengthen an existing skill, maybe something could repair an existing channel. "The graduation trial ingredient Nora mentioned," I said. "What grows beneath the academy?" Arya stopped eating. "Silver vein moss." "What does it do?" "Alchemists use it to stabilize mana channels during surgery." My heartbeat changed. "Why only during graduation trial?" "It grows in the old dungeon under the final arena. The dungeon opens naturally only during the Academy's seasonal mana shift." "When?" "Usually in a month." "Usually?" She looked toward the window. Outside, the alarm bell rang once, then twice, then continuously. The floor beneath us trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Nora ran into the kitchen. "The old dungeon is opening now." Lord Vale appeared in the doorway behind her. For the first time since I met him, he looked alarmed. "The trial begins at dawn," he said, "and something below the academy has started eating the mana seals." On the 5th day, I entered the academy dungeon carrying a cooking knife, 3 lunchboxes, and more confidence than was medically reasonable. Ren carried a tower shield. Mira carried her bow. Arya carried a spear, despite the damaged mana channel in her left arm. 7 first-year students followed us, all people the ranking board had placed near the bottom before they started eating my food. Our team was ranked 8th out of 8. Students packed the arena above the dungeon entrance. Lord Vale sat with the dean. Doran and Bram watched from the kitchen staff line. Everyone could see us. We needed 10 bronze markers before sunset. Speed, monster cores, and intact team members gave points. First place paid 20 gold. 5 days earlier, I had earned 12 copper a day. Leon, the highest-ranked first-year sword adept, looked at my apron and laughed. "You are really entering as a cook?" "No," I said. "I am entering as lunch." His team laughed harder. Then the gate opened. Blue moss lit broken stone pillars above black water. 3 shell crabs climbed out of a pool. Ren stepped forward. Before my wolf tongue dish, his shield awareness had been basic. Now it was refined. The first crab lunged. Ren blocked before I saw the strike. Mira put an arrow into the exposed joint. Arya pierced it with one clean spear thrust. I touched the dying crab with my knife before it stopped moving. My class reacted. The claw meat carried armor hardness. 1 proper portion could give 1/10 permanently. We took the first bronze marker. The crystal scoreboard above us updated through the dungeon sensors. Our team moved from 8th place to 7th. A cheer came through the echo crystal fixed to the wall. It was faint, but every one of us heard it. The world was watching. We found 3 more markers in the next 20 minutes. Kai crossed a broken bridge using his improved balance. Sul crossed a steam vent with his heat resistance. Ren detected 2 ambushes before they began. None of them had become geniuses. They had become slightly better exactly where they used to fail. That was enough. After 40 minutes, the scoreboard placed us 2nd. The roar from the arena became loud enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Then the floor moved. A crack split the wall ahead of us. Cold silver light poured through. Arya stopped. "That passage is not part of the first layer." I smelled something sharp and clean, almost like rain on metal. My class reacted before I even touched it. Silver vein moss, the ingredient Nora said could stabilize damaged mana channels. I looked at Arya's left hand. It was already trembling from using her spear. The correct decision was to ignore the passage and finish the trial. Then someone screamed inside it. We ran. Leon and 2 teammates were trapped by a 10-foot white centipede whose crystal shell had already broken a shield. Mira swore. "Mana Eater, 2nd layer monster." Leon struck it with lightning. The shell absorbed the spell. The creature turned toward him. I opened the first lunchbox. I had prepared each portion from personally gathered ingredients to fill a different unsaturated weakness. Eat. Ren did not ask questions. Neither did the others. Ren gained 2/10 of stamina. Sul gained 1/10. Kai gained 1/10 of stamina and 1/10 of poison resistance. My 10% return came back in pieces, a few hundredths of stamina. Balance, resistance, small numbers. My breathing still became easier. Ren, head. Mira, joints. Arya, no channel burst. She looked at me. "You are not my instructor." "Correct, I am lunch." Even Leon laughed once. Ren caught the bite on his shield and twisted at the exact moment his refined awareness warned him. Mira shot the exposed leg joint. Leon finally understood the target. He drove lightning through her arrow. The joint exploded. The Mana Eater screamed. The arena answered with a roar through the echo crystal. We broke 2 more legs. Then the tail hit me in the chest. I flew backward and struck the wall. Permanent soup had improved me. It had not made ribs decorative. I tasted blood. The Mana Eater charged Arya. She raised her spear. Blue light burned under the skin of her damaged arm. "Arya, do not burst." She did. Her spear became a white line and punched through the cracked joint into the monster's body. The Mana Eater collapsed. So did she. I reached the creature first and put my hand against its side. Personally gathered, its heart carried mana resistance. Its crystal marrow carried channel reinforcement. The inner membrane could create 1 empty skill slot, a place for a future skill, not a skill itself. Arya coughed blood. I forgot it immediately. We carried her deeper into the silver passage. Silver vein moss covered the walls like frost. I cut it myself. Personal gathering confirmed. Channel stabilization. I had the moss. I had Mana Eater marrow. Nora's burned cookbook was still inside my coat. One surviving page described a medical broth using exactly those ingredients. The problem was that we were underground with no stove and no pot. Sol pointed at a steam vent in the floor. Heat. Ren picked up the metal boss from Leon's broken shield. Pot. Mira looked at me. Chef. We washed the shield metal, added water, marrow, salt, dried onion, and finally the silver moss. The broth slowly turned silver. Then the class warned me. Too hot. If I spoiled a permanent dish, the eater would lose one existing skill forever. Arya's spear skill was the reason she was alive. My hand started shaking. I stopped stirring, counted my breathing. Lower steam. Marrow first. Moss last. Never boil after the moss entered. The warning disappeared. Correct. I filled a cup. Arya opened her eyes. What does it do? It should stabilize your channel and reinforce the damaged section. Should? I dislike lying to patients. She looked at me for 2 seconds. You gave me the larger potato. I will risk the soup. That was terrible medical reasoning. She drank anyway. The blue light beneath her skin dimmed. Her breathing slowed. My class reacted. Permanent channel reinforcement increased by 3/10. The unstable section stopped leaking mana. My return gave me 3/100 of channel reinforcement. Arya raised her left hand. It did not tremble. She stared at it. Ren laughed loudly enough to hurt my ribs. Mira turned away and inspected an arrow that did not need inspection. Leon whispered, "That was impossible." Then the echo crystal on the wall pulsed. I had forgotten it. Everything had been transmitted to the arena. Hundreds had watched the improvised treatment, and the Academy medic confirmed through the crystal that Arya was stable. The roar from above became so loud that dust fell around us. My status had just moved beyond the kitchen. Lord Vale had watched a stove idler stabilize his niece in the middle of a dungeon. We should have returned. Instead, the silver passage shook again. Something farther inside was chewing through the Academy seals. All 11 students followed the damaged seals to a black stone door carved with a ladle, knife, and bowl. Kitchen symbols. My class reacted. The door opened when I touched it. Behind it was a buried kitchen. Rust covered the buried kitchen. On the far wall stood an intact copy of the 12-dish menu. This copy had never been scraped. The missing name was still there. Classless feast. Nora had eaten it as a girl and awakened the next morning without a class. I read the smaller inscription beneath the name. The dish did not simply destroy a class. Prepared correctly, it removed the eater's current class and left the foundation empty enough to accept another, a class reset. In this kingdom, one awakening decided rank, wages, school placement, and often a person's entire future. A recipe that could reset a class was not dinner. It was a weapon aimed at the entire social order. Lord Vale's voice came through the echo crystal. "Steve, step away from the wall. Royal order." I did not move fast enough. The central oven opened by itself. A sealed iron box slid out. The lid carried the old crest of the Royal Class Bureau. Inside were records from 100 years ago. The records described a secret bureau program. Failed soldiers ate classless feast. Some received new classes. 3 became powerful enough that the project was erased. The final report named the head cook, Steve Marin, same first name as mine. Probably coincidence. I had been killed by a soda machine and reincarnated as a magical cook. I no longer trusted coincidence. The stone door slammed shut behind us. A voice came from the oven. "Successor recognized." A black-boned figure in a ruined chef coat climbed from the oven with blue fire in its eyes and a bone cleaver in one hand. Nora's cookbook had one sketch of it. The last cook. Guardian of the erased menu. It attacked me first. Ren blocked. Leon used lightning. Arya stabbed. Mira fired at the eyes. Nothing stopped it. Nothing stopped it. "Successor must prove the hand," it said. I had one kitchen knife. It had a bone cleaver longer than my arm. I looked at the old ovens. Then I changed the goal. "Ren, push it toward the center stove." He did not understand. He trusted me anyway. Shield, sword, rope arrow, and spear forced the last cook backward into the open oven. Together they forced the last cook backward into the open stone oven. I pulled the iron lever. The door slammed. Blue fire exploded inside. The Guardian hammered against the stone. Cracks spread through the oven face. I opened every heat valve. "You are cooking the boss," Leon shouted. "Yes." "Is that legal?" Lord Vale's voice came through the crystal. No. The arena laughed so loudly we heard it underground. The Guardian broke one arm through the oven door. Ren smashed it back inside. The blue light finally died. When I opened the oven, the last cook fell onto the floor smoking. I touched it with my knife. Claim confirmed. Apparently my class accepted cooking as a finishing move. Its heart carried 1 full point of class stability across 5 portions. Its bone carried durability. Its core carried mana perception. One monster contained more permanent growth than every rat I had killed combined. The scoreboard reacted before we did. The Hidden Guardian counted as a special boss. Our team jumped into first place by more than 200 points. The arena went wild. We returned at sunset with all 10 bronze markers, the last cook's core, the old bureau records, and every student alive. The dungeon gate opened. Noise hit us like a wall. Students stood on benches while the kitchen staff waved towels. Ren and Arya heard their names first. Then the crowd started shouting mine. Steve, Steve, Steve. 5 days earlier, 300 people had laughed at Stove Idler. Now more than 1,000 witnesses watched the official scores appear. Our team finished first with 387 points. The next complete team had 143. The lowest-ranked group in the academy had crushed the field trial. The students split the 20 gold prize. The dean gave me a separate 5 gold support grant. 5 gold was 50,000 copper. My first wage had been 12 copper a day. Money had stopped climbing stairs and jumped out a window. Then Doran stepped onto the arena floor. Effective tomorrow, Steve is no longer a kitchen helper. For 1 second, I thought he was firing me. He is provisional enhancement cook under academy supervision. Base pay, 1 silver a day. Private sales remain subject to the 12% kitchen agreement. The kitchen staff cheered louder than the students. 1 silver a day was more than 8 times my old wage. Status became official. The testing pillars came next. Ren's stamina increase held. Kai's resistance held. Every trial meal effect remained permanent. Then the medic tested Arya. Her channel was stable. The damage section had strengthened by 3/10. Her father sat down hard in his chair. Arya looked at me across the arena and raised her steady left hand. No words. She did not need them. When they tested me, the result was less dramatic, but more important. My strength had begun at 3.8. It was now 4.1. My stamina had begun at 4.2. It was now 4.6. My regeneration reached 1.02, while smaller gains appeared in heat resistance, balance, grip, poison resistance, spatial awareness, and channel reinforcement. I was still a terrible fighter. The crowd cheered anyway. They understood the pattern. Every person I made stronger made me stronger too. That night, we ate in the kitchen. Ordinary food. I wanted one meal that did not change anyone's future. Flatbread blistered on iron, chicken browned in garlic oil. Nora cooked onions until sweet. Ren mangled dough. Mira stole chicken from the pan. Doran called his expensive oil inventory testing. Even Bram left a basket of onions beside the door before disappearing. Arya sat near the window. Her left hand rested flat beside her bowl. It did not shake once. For the first time in either of my lives, I understood what wealth could feel like before it became money. People were eating because I had cooked. People who had been written off were standing straighter. I had 5 gold in grant credit, personal cash, a legal kitchen position, Mira as a hunting partner, and a team that kept getting stronger. Through them, I was growing too. It should have felt safe. Lord Vale entered the kitchen after midnight. He was alone. He placed the old iron box from the dungeon on the table. "The capital is sending an examiner," he said. "Arrival within 10 days. Higher rank than you? Much higher. Friendly? No. Good. I was worried the week might become quiet." Vale opened the box and removed a page hidden beneath a false bottom. It listed the 7 ingredients for classless feast. Silver vein moss was one. Mana eater marrow was another. The final ingredient was written in darker ink, a voluntary fragment of the eater's awakened core. Nora stopped breathing for a moment. Vale pointed at an old note. The bureau program used prisoners. The final ingredient was taken by force. The dish spoiled. A failed permanent dish stole a skill. A failed dish aimed at the foundation of a class could do far worse. Nora sat down. "That is what they fed me." Vale nodded. "You were not supposed to survive." The kitchen went silent. Then I saw another handwritten note in the margin. "Prepared correctly. classless feast did not leave the eater empty forever. A new class could be shaped from the meal that followed. A second awakening, a second chance. I thought about every student who had been laughed at beside the crystal. I thought about Stove Idler. The kingdom had built its hierarchy around one awakening that almost nobody could change. This recipe could break that rule. Vale watched me understand. Bram and Doran are not the enemies you should fear, Vale said. I may become one, but the highest rung is above me. The Bureau. Above the Bureau. A horn sounded at the academy gate. One long note, then another. Royal arrival. Vale's face changed. They were not supposed to arrive for 10 days. Doran stood. Mira reached for her bow. Ren lifted his shield. Arya rose beside me with a steady left hand. I looked at the empty bowls and the recipe powerful enough to erase the meaning of birth rank. 5 days ago, a vending machine had ended my first life. Now the kingdom had come to inspect my soup. This time, I planned to charge them for dinner.